I'm Steve Wood, recovered alcoholic. Welcome to Common Solution Workshop. So I always like to start off with like a kind of a, I don't know if it's a parable or a story, whatever you want to call it, but in Colorado, they have the ruins of what at one time was a monstrous oak tree. It's probably the largest ruin of an oak tree there is. And it was the most gigantic tree of its time. And when it met its destruction, it was close to 600 years old. And it was there when Columbus discovered America, when the Pilgrims settled on Plymouth. You know, in 4 centuries, it was struck by lightning 14 times, survived 1,000 rainstorms, snow, been frozen over a dozen times, caught on fire almost a dozen times, and was hit by countless avalanches. It survived all these near-death experiences, but in the end, what killed it was an army of beetles. You know, they ate away at the bark and gradually destroyed its core. And what it did is it killed its inner strength and leveled this monstrous, huge tree to the ground. Remember, age had not hurt it, and it survived lightning storms, fire and ice, yet it was killed by something you could smash between your fingers and your thumb. You know, the question is, are we any different than that tree? I mean, we survive near-death experiences, you know, alcohol, poisoning, overdoses, drunk driving, smoking poison, whatever it was, violence. Some of us in here probably been shot, who knows? But all that stuff really only brought us to the ground. In the end, it was what we couldn't see that ate away at our core and slowly killed us spiritually. So our hearts were eaten away by resentments, fears, guilt, pride, selfishness. It was what we held on to that killed us. So, you know, so unlike that tree, we can be put back together again. We don't have to stay broken. So I guess what I'm saying is, if what I love about the program of recovery, we come in here broken. And if you are broken, you can be put back together again. If you're lost everything, you can have your life back again. And, you know, if you feel like you're in darkness, the lights will come back on. And no matter how far down the trail you've gone, you can be led back home again. That's the beautiful thing. But recovery begins by simply facing our human imperfections. A lot of people think it's about powerlessness. That's a huge thing, step one. And step one's the only step we have to do 100%, but it's really facing our imperfections. When I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous, I walked in there not because I was crazy. I was, but I didn't think I was. I didn't walk in there because I need to get past resentments and find God. I walked in there because I was a drunk. You know, and that's, you know, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So we're gonna go to page 58. I'm gonna read a little bit of the big book. We're not gonna do a whole lot of the big book tonight because there's a lot of stuff I'm gonna cover. Kind of an introduction. I can't go over the stuff without, you know, like go over how to do an inventory without going over this stuff tonight, because nothing else will make sense. Well, a lot of you guys done the steps, so, but you know what I'm talking about. All right, page 58. First of all, look at the title of this chapter, how it works, how the solution works, how 429 works. Meaning there is directions in here, how to properly write a 4-step. So over the next, 5 weeks or so, we're going to go through this chapter carefully, very carefully, in the hopes of having a better understanding. We're going to look at what it says here in this book. And we heard this read a million times. Rarely have we seen a person fail who thoroughly followed our path. And the word thoroughly jumps out there right in our face, because thoroughly means done carefully, completely. Maybe you could say fully. There's other words like, painstaking is another word that we use in recovery for, we use in the big book for thoroughly. And it's leaving no stone unturned. And what, so it says path, and think about path as what forms a hiking path. You know, some of us like to go hiking or just on a long walk at night. And how do we not get lost? We stay on the path. But what forms, like, you know, the hiking path, the dirt path, by many people walking on the same ground, it's a well-worn way. And the word way is very strong, the way, you know, forming a trusted line of travel. And if you follow that path, you will end up at the same destination as everyone else did. So they say, you know, follow this path, you reach the summit, you'll reach the summit. If you go, hey, you know what, here's a shortcut, I think we might make it there, you probably won't. But another word for path, you know, I mentioned a second ago, the way. Our path is a method to find whatever you want to call God. And we talked about a few weeks about God being within. So the path is steps 4 through 9. Rarely do we see a person fail who to the best of their ability. That's all we have to do, 4 through 9. You know, how many have I seen fail who sturdily done 4 through 9? And of course, didn't let up on that in step 10, didn't let up on step 11, 12, 0. I've done book studies for a long time, and I'll say, and at a 70-person rehab, and there's some retreads in there, and I'll say, I've never, and they go, how many people you known, if you know anyone that relapsed that did the steps? And I say, no. And the guy goes, stands up and goes, oh, wait a minute, I did step 4. Well, did you make amends? No. Did you know, another guy, did you sponsor? No. There's always something missing. I've never known a person that did the steps to relapse. There's always something left behind. And you know, people take action and come into awareness of a presence of God. You know, we live again. Look what it says next. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to the simple program. You know, 4 through 9. And usually men and women who are constantly incapable of being honest. Look what it says, with themselves. Talking about self-honesty. There's a quote by this guy named Walter Anderson, who's a very, very old writer, and he said, our lives only improve when we're willing to take a chance, and the first and most difficult risk we can take is to be honest with ourselves. Honesty, the best definition I ever heard of honesty by a book thumping guy was years ago, was the awareness of where I'm at. Many don't have the tools to know where they're at. You know, do I have fear? Why do I have fear? Do I have a feeling of displeasure? Why do I have that feeling of displeasure? Why do I hold on to resentments? Do I have guilt? If I do not know where I'm at, everyone will always be the cause of my problems. I got to look at me, look within. So it'll always be circumstances outside of me that is the cause. You know, by knowing where I'm at, I gain awareness of what controls me, and I'm aware of, you know, what I can work on. You know, the thing about, and I said this many times, and some people come to this group like this before, what I'm aware of, what I gain awareness of, I can work on. I can perhaps let it go, make an amends, whatever I have to do, because I'm aware of it. But what I'm not aware of controls me. If I'm not aware of resentments, it controls me. If I'm not aware of pride, it controls me. It says there are such unfortunates, they're not at fault, they seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Now notice something here. It says rigorous honesty. What does rigorous mean? It means complete. You know, there's a lot of interesting words in this book. One of the words is, you know, I always see as complete. I think of the circle and the triangle. The circle means wholeness or complete. So focus on the word wholeness. You know, rigorous honesty means complete honesty. And can I have complete honesty without the steps? I'm going to get complete honesty by looking at that third column of the inventory, the pride and the self-esteem and all that. But, you know, there's also words like entire psychic change, entirely getting rid of self without God, completely getting rid, very deep words. But also notice something else. It does not say request rigorous honesty. It says demands. That's a bigger word. So because there's a huge difference between demand and request. A request is like soft-spoken and it can be polite. Usually it is. Like, can I please have that pen? And you ask them real nicely. Can I please have, you know, you're polite. A demand is more like the opposite. Slam your hand down the desk, give me that damn pen. Remember in the days of the old West when they would rob the stagecoach, the robber would show up with a gun and he would want the strong box. And he takes the money, puts the money to the gun to the guy's head. He wants that strong box. He's the bullets on his head, give me the strong box. What's the threat? He's going to get shot in the head if you give him the strong box. The bigger question is, what is a threat if we do not, if we're not completely honest with ourselves? If we're not honest, you cannot have personality change sufficient to bring out recovery, because you can't be God reliant and dishonest at the same time. You might get some time and go to some meetings and make a few dances and picnics and stuff, but you won't achieve, I like to call worthwhile or long-term, well, I wasn't say sobriety, I'll say freedom, until you have you're completely honest. So Albert Einstein, and my favorite quote by Einstein, there's a lot of them, but this is my favorite ones. The most important decision you have to make is, do I want to live in a friendly or hostile universe? Let me say that again. Einstein said, the most important decision you have to make is, do I want to live in a friendly or hostile universe? Do I want to live in a universe that is filled with hostility and anger, hating other people, or I want to live in a place of love? Some of us have only known the hostile part, and we think that when we're in a hostile universe, we think this is the best it gets, because we never experienced this stuff before. We're going to get more into this. But the question, how do I change something that I've built? That's the hardest thing. We tried numerous things to change ourselves. We tried running away from our past. We tried forgetting our past. We try acting like our past doesn't exist. We bring our past to a therapist. We blame others for our past. We use alcohol and drugs to self-medicate and not remember anything about our past. And some of that stuff worked for a second. Alcohol probably worked the best, but it's only temporary. This is a weird analogy, but it's like, suppose we carried around bags of manure, right? And the manure represents, the bags represent our past, right? What people done to us, what they said, the bad things they did, the negative situations, the events, the guilt we carry, and we stay bond to those wounds, like we're going to get something from it, of our past, and we identify ourselves based on our wounds. And we're carrying around this bag. It's just like a bag of manure. Then we reach down into that bag and we smear all over ourselves and wonder why we smell bad. Wonder why our life isn't good. It's kind of a weird analogy, but it's true. So even though we live in the present, we often think we are driven by the past. So Alan Watts is one of my favorite writers, English, I call him philosopher. And Alan Watts explained, if you're on a boat, headed up a river, and as you're going forward, you're standing at the back of the boat, and what do you see? You see the wake. And what is the wake? It's the wake is the trail left behind the boat that tells you where the boat has been going, and it fades. It just drifts off. Is the wake driving and powering the boat? No, the engine is. So is it possible for the wake, the trail left behind, to make the boat go in a direction? No, it can't. It's just a trail that is left far behind that disappears. It's the past. So the wake doesn't make the boat go forward. The wake doesn't drive the boat any more than, a tail wags a dog. Our trail, our wake is our past. And so here it is one of the problems is we have a tendency to let our wake drive us, because why? We stay attached to it. And we let what happened to us in the past determine what's going to happen to us next. in the midst of resentment and guilt and anxiety, we fail to see the truth that our past drives us. We blame that stuff that's in our wake is why our life isn't working. So the wake of our past is not what makes us go, but we let it. So it's kind of like an illusion. So what do we need to do? We need to look at our trail that that we're so fixated on. And the reason why is our life is going in the direction, that direction. And step 4, we're going back in our personal history. So we can discover that, the causes of our suffering. And what we see is just an illusion created by our mind. We just let that stuff, if we just let that stuff go, and is what we need to do. And to do that, we must understand what's driving the wake. That's what's step 4. That's what we're doing here. We're looking at what's driving our past, what's making us hold this stuff, so we can move into the now. So when we take action of our past, it fades away. As soon as we take action on our past, it fades away, just like the wake of the boat. It just fades away. Meaning, it's left by the past. Well, the wake of the past does not have to determine our future anymore. I'll give you an example. It's like my dad he was high strung, especially when he worked. He would come home and he would yell and scream, and not scream, but he was loud, and he would raise his voice like, I'm watching this show and stuff. But anyways, I didn't look at my dad as mean or he hated me. And I would stay mad at him for I was a kid, for 2 minutes, I'll be mad at him and then I would let it go. As a kid, I was happy for no reason. But when I got older and was a drug addict and an alcoholic, had falling outs with my family, and my relationships were falling apart, I started blaming him for what he did to me in the past. I believe all that was happening was because my dad was mean to me when I was a kid. And I looked at all those things in my wake, so to speak, as excuses of why I can't, get my life on, why I can't stay sober, why I can't be a normal person. But then I did the steps. And today, whenever I have the tendency to look at the back, what's behind me, and I want to blame something, I know it's just a trail that's left behind that's not really there anymore. So tonight, this workshop becomes alive because we're going to look at the mechanics of step 4. And over the course of, like I said before, the next month or so, I will do my best to preserve the integrity of step 4. I ask you to be open-minded because I might present things in the 4th step that I stick to the book as much as I can, but it might be a little bit different than the way you did it. And if I don't want anyone to change the way they did it. I want them to look at it and go, oh, that's an interesting perspective. Maybe I can add it to it or whatever, But, I try to stick to what's written in the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. And my goal is to explain, like I said, the mechanics of step 4. So, how many of us have done inventory? A lot of us in here, right? How many are currently on inventory? I always raise my hand because I'm always on inventory. I'm always, writing something down in step 10 and stuff, same thing. Always on it. But, these house cleaning steps of 49, separate the men from the boys. It says in the 12 and 12, 6 and 7, I think the whole enchilada does. But there's a stigma with the step 4 in the rooms. You know what I mean by the rooms? The old time, people call it the dreaded 4th step. And we are asked, to look at things we have protected and swept under the rug and don't want anyone to know about. Old timers will scare the shit out of newcomers at meetings by saying, it's my first meeting ever, and they raise their hand, and 10 minutes later, wait till you get to step 4, And I want to say is, I'm going to quote Joe McQuaney from Joe and Charlie. He says, if you follow inventory like it's written in the big book, you have nothing to fear. You have nothing to fear. I went to rehab 7 times in 10 years. And that's not like a calling card or anything, or a rite of passage or anything like that. But I never got more. What's important about those 10 years, I never got more than 3 months or past the 3rd step. Step 4 was this wall, tall wall that I was afraid to climb because of the stigma I was given by people. But see, I always want to listen to people, but I listened to people that I was more in common with sometimes, because I could hide behind them. I call this, the guys that did the steps do-gooders, because they had to be like that their whole lives. But then I started getting it a little bit, and I had to go back out and come back a few times. So, but my point is, I never knew it was on the other side until I knocked down that wall. The question is, what has prevented me from taking the action of 439? I believe I was afraid to open like Pandora's box. I believed if I brought these things that only I knew about would make things worse. And oh my God, like I was the only one that did this stuff. Here are a few 5th steps, and you'll realize there's crazier people than you are. Crazy, not crazier, but crazy stuff. But what made these things worse was not doing it. And when I finally took the action, I found a new world, a new me, and a new others. And I'm going to put up a slide up here. Here's the screen. So step 4, let's look at what it says here. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. So searching is a deep word, because in searching, I'm examining, I'm carefully examining or thoroughly looking at something. So searching means fact finding. Because if I'm searching for something, I need to find something. So fact finding. Fearless is the courage to face fear. That is, fearless is fact facing. So think about that. Searching, fact finding, fearless, fact facing. Moral is, I guess the easiest way to put it is right and wrong, human character. The easy way to put it is honesty, right? When people say, yeah, my grandma used to say, do you know the moral of the story is? The moral of the story, and the moral of the story is supposed to teach you how to be a better person. So this is awakening us to the better person that we thought doesn't exist. But the moral personal inventory, so it's this examination of our personal resentments, our harms, fears, sex conduct, in order to become, I'm going to say, change it to say it's in order to uncover what drives us, those behaviors. What drives those behaviors? I'm going to turn this, close it off right now. Here's another way to look at step 4. Made a fact-finding, fact-facing, honest inventory of ourselves. Made a fact-finding, fact-facing, honest inventory of ourselves. That makes it a little deep. Have you ever wondered, the question, for me, I used to wonder why I did the things I did. Did you ever wonder why you got upset so easy? Why you blame other people? What causes your anger? I went to anger management, and then it was just tools they gave us. Nothing, it was like, yeah. So, but I wondered why I had rage. Did you ever wonder why you had rage or resentment or criticize others or always comparing yourself to others or in competition? Why you fear about problems, even though will most likely never happen? Why do we seek revenge and harm other people? The past, why do we hold on to that past? What makes us do that? Why do I have guilt of the past or fear of the future? Why do I hate? Why am I greedy, jealous, judgmental of not just others, but myself? Why do we get upset at the smallest mistakes? Why do I have to be right, even though I know I'm bleeding and dying? Why do I need to get the last word in? All that stuff. Why do I hold on to things and not let go that aren't meant for me, that they're not created for us to hold on to? Why would I hold on to something that's just like anger? Why are we misery? Why do we have misery? Why do we resent ourselves and self-pity and lean into depression? Why do we seek ease and comfort? And the real question is, what's driving us to those thoughts? So the average person most likely will never know why they go from fear to anger, to resentment, to fear, to harming others, to fear, to guilt, back to fear, back to self-pity, back to depression, all over again. Right? But they have no clue. They don't see this stuff approaching, and they don't know where this originates or comes from. No clue at all. So I thought from a therapist, it must be the way I was raised. No. It must be the belief system I had. Nope. Ego, selfishness, nope. What I'm talking about runs deeper than all those things combined. Matter of fact, ego, selfishness, and the belief systems are all driven by it, the exact same thing. So the question is, what drives us? The answer is within every single one of us. Go to page 60 of the big book. So you can see it's what it states here. The first requirement, after we make the decision, the first requirement is to be convinced. Well, before we do the decision, actually, the first requirement is to be convinced that any life run self-will can hardly be a success. Self-will is the unconscious devotion to my social, security, and sexual needs for survival. That third column we see in the inventory, right? Self-will is also called misdirected instincts. It mentions that in 12 and 12. And misdirected means led in the wrong direction or misuse. If it's misuse of instincts, that means I could use them correctly. Also, it's referred in the big book as simply self, exactness of my wrongs, defects of character, shortcomings, misdirected, they're all the same. And I don't like to break those down to different things, because Bill didn't mean it that way. He liked to use the same words. But our instincts are natural and they're not learned. So our basic instincts kick in the moment of birth. The moment of birth, our instincts kick into high gear. And what that means is, think about it for a second. The baby is protected inside and within the mother, right? It's not going anywhere. It's within the mother. It's fed, it's cared for. And it pops out and screams because it's no longer safe. That's survival instinct. We are born, with, something with it right away. More of them are revealed as we mature, these instincts. So the foundation of our behavior is our human instincts. They drive our thinking, our theories, our ideas, but when misdirected, they go through our lives. And they drive and create every single resentment, every single harm, every fear. They drive us to complete insanity. You cannot grow spiritually without becoming aware of what drives you and learning about, and understanding it. Now, I could teach this class to you 50 times about instincts, and until you do a fifth step and also hear some, that's when you start to really understand what it means. And how I detach myself. If you have a 12 and 12, I don't go in 12 and 12 a lot, but I'm going to read a little about 12 and 12 for a couple minutes. And it's on page 42, the 12 and 12. Page 42. Where it says creation. Creation gave us instincts for a purpose. So if creation gave us instincts for a purpose, it means they're God-given. Without them, we wouldn't be complete human beings. If men and women did not exert themselves to be secure in their persons, made no effort to harvest food or construct shelter, there would be no survival. If they did not reproduce, the earth would not be populated. If there was no social instinct, if man cared nothing for society or one another, there would be no society. So these desires for sex relations, for material and emotional security, and for companionship are perfectly necessary and surely God-given. I'm sorry, surely perfectly necessary and surely God-given. So all that is proper use of the instincts right there. That's all proper use. Now, yet these instincts, so necessary for our existence, often far exceed their proper functions powerfully, blindly, many times. So I believe they drive us, dominate us, and insist on running our lives. So when they dominate me, insist upon running my life, I'm looking for answers outside. I think I need more or something, right? So look what it says here: our desires for sex, for material and emotional security, and for an important place in society, often tyrannize us. Think of like a tyrant, it's an old word. It's meant to rule over, power somebody. Like you call your boss a tyrant, it's someone that abuses control. When thus out of joint, man's natural desires cause him great trouble, practically all the trouble there is. No human being, however good, is exempt, that means free, from these troubles. Nearly every single emotional problem can be seen as a case of misdirected instincts. Misdirected instincts. When that happens, our great natural assets, the instincts, have turned into physical and mental liabilities. So step four is our vigorous, painstaking effort to discover what these liabilities in each of us have been and are. So I'm going to put up the slide here. And so we're not looking at the packet yet, the 4-step packet, but this is in the 4-step packet. And you'll see everything's on here as far as what's in the third column. And the 4-step sheet that has lists the instincts in there for you to check off. And it doesn't say high and low self-esteem, but that's the way I like to ask a person about it, sometimes even when they're writing it. But so you have your social, security, and sex. They call that the 3 S's. So this is for a better understanding. We're gonna look at all its components. Let's look at first. We're gonna look at social. It's our interactions with others and yourself. So social is our natural desires for pride, our natural desire for self-esteem, our natural desires for personal relations. It's natural, right? So our social instincts is our concern for, really, it's our concern for one another. We all have it. And, us humans and animals both have similar security and sex instinct, right? Similar, but we differ in the way we interact in our social instinct. We have a lot more tools to work with. Animals don't have self-esteem or pride. They might look like they do, but they don't. And their relations with each other is different than ours, different than ours. They communicate differently. So let's look at these 3 things here. I mean, the pride. Pride's a big one, right? What is pride? It's my view how others see me. It's what I see out here. I think, kicking is looking at me funny. I'm going to go, what's her problem? And I start getting, start getting resentful or something. And it can also be the front we want other people to see. I'm going to act a certain way so my pride is not affected. It's a stage character. Remember what's his name? Mark Houston used to say about the stage character. Some of you probably heard that before. And he was off on the stage character. I'm a dad. I'm a mom. I'm a brother. I'm this. I'm that. I'm an employee, husband, wife. And he goes on to, one of the things that I heard someone else say recently is our pride causes us to want to be in control of things. And like our family, like we say, my son, my kid, my wife. We forget their names. Mine. Pretty interesting. Very interesting. Why do we do that? But the front one is to see healthy pride makes us want to do our best, right? It can also be like Joe McQueen used to say, if your neighbor paints his house, you might go turn around and paint your house because you realize it looks like crap. But it's how we strive, But what about when it's misdirected? It leads to a lot of blindness and a lot of resentments and fear and harming others. So we fear what others think of us, meaning we turn our lives over to others. We're afraid people see the real you. Yeah, I'm afraid people are gonna see the real me, is what I'm gonna say. They might know the truth. We want to be recognized. We want to run the show. So we disregard other needs because all we care about is our own. Does that sound like someone that's not selfish? We care only about our own needs. We lose sight of our goals because we're worried about what's out here. So by trying to demand the correct response from others, we become dishonest. So we overuse lies when we believe. The end result of misdirected pride or false pride is we're restless, irritable, and discontent. We drank to forget pride. We said F pride, I'm gonna have a drink. But restless, irritable, and discontent is when we're dry. Between drinking, between a run, in jail, out of jail, or how about a member of Alcoholics Anonymous that says, screw these steps. Restless, irritable, discontent is three things all trapped together at the same time. High anxiety, easily pissed off, and not satisfied at anything. Not satisfied. Nothing satisfies me. So the next one is we got self-esteem. And that's self-esteem is the view how others see me. I'm sorry, how I view myself. I'm sorry, I said it backwards. Pride's the view how others see me. Self-esteem is how I view myself. So we're going to look at high and low self-esteem. High self-esteem is I think I'm better than others. Low self-esteem, I think I'm less than others. So what I'm saying is criticism doesn't always have to come from other people. We already have it. It's called self-esteem. When self-esteem is affected, it can create a point of high self. That's called high self-esteem, high self-worth. That feeling of I'm better than you. Superiority, playing God. I judge others, judgmental. Think of an example. Let's say Dwayne in here pisses me off, right? And my self-esteem is high. I'm better than him. What does he know? Who the hell does he think he is? He doesn't even know I'm mad at him. And that feeling of superiority, I'm better than another person, can go to harm him and harm other people around him. So I'll be honest with you, I caught my high self-esteem at meetings a lot of times, especially early on when I started. I had a lot of I call it spiritual ego going on. I'm going to show the people what I'm made of, and I felt like some guy would speak. Oh, here goes this guy again. He's got no program. What's he speaking for? We've all done that. I want everyone to have peace of mind. But yeah, I'm rolling my eyes, and I discovered that judging another in the room, was not putting it wasn't saying anything towards them. It's saying something towards me. And I also realized if I'm judging somebody because they're complaining about something, they're in a lot of pain, and I'm sitting there showing my pain. I'm not defining them, I'm only defining myself. So when self-esteem is affected, it can also create a low point. And that's the deep feeling that I'm worthless. I'm not good enough. This is the one that most people get, that we're less than another person. So let's say I have a resentment against a friend because he said things towards me hurting my feelings. My self-esteem is low. What are you doing here? My self-esteem is low. It made me, hurt my feelings. It made me feel less than, not good enough. Low self-esteem can lead to self-pity and depression. So when self-esteem is misdirected, out. The meeting going on. Bye. Close the door. When self-esteem is misdirected, our mood is always up or down. We run over others to satisfy our needs. We feel others are always looking at us and judging us. We compete with others. We believe we're better than others. And the only way, our way is the only way. It must be done our way. We're right all the time. We get the last word in. We're angry when people don't do what we want to do. That's what self-esteem is. They're not doing what I want to do. We think we're less than others, not good enough, or failure. And we become angry when others do not praise us or don't do what we want to do. Don't listen to us, and I get revenge. The end result is we either become the center of attention or we isolate. Now, here's the good news. Besides doing inventory and understanding self-esteem, we need to have esteem, which means to hold something in higher regard. I want to have esteem towards others, kindness. But that's still not enough. I need to do something. And the best way to get rid of low self-esteem or high self-esteem is do esteemable acts. Until we start, we need to start doing good. We will never, otherwise we'll never believe we're good. An esteemable act could be holding the door open for someone, or, giving them food, or feeding the homeless, or going to a meeting, getting a commitment. But there is no esteemable act on this planet like sponsoring. See how this program comes together? That's going to change your self-esteem. So don't wonder if, don't sit there and beat yourself up over self-esteem and go, I've done these stuff. Well, I'm not sponsoring. You're going to see it change. Personal relations. Who doesn't want personal relations? We all want personal relations. It's what we strive for. And if I do have low self-esteem, sometimes I want to push myself towards it. It is our program. It's our network. How often did we write down personal relations was affected under resentments? A lot. It creates an inner circle of support. That's what it's supposed to do. But we need personal relations in our lives, on the job. It's there so we can learn to help other people. But when it's misdirected, if I see my neighbor outside and I have a personal relationship with him, he's falling off his ladder, I'm going to run over there and help him. That's normal. But what if it's misdirected? I'm going to make demands on others. I expect others to do for me. I get resentful when others don't do what I want. I try to, I please others, and because my goals again go away. I blame others for my problem. I resent others. Envious, jealous, compete. We drive people right out of our lives. So what's the end result there? Personal relations, when it's misdirected, we isolate and become lonely. And we latch even more into what we think is going to help us, alcohol, even though we have an allergy with it. Just nothing like feeling the stuff when you're dry. Not doing the steps. So let's look at security, safe from danger. What makes human beings want to feel safe and protected? It's this natural fear called security. It's for our well-being, even our health. I used to see an alarm company had a big sign above it. It said, whatever alarm company, that feeling of being safe and protected. That's what we want to feel. So emotional security, we'll look at that first, is our stability with ourselves and others. Every day we experience emotions, right? Love, fear, joy, happiness, anger, resentment, guilt, whatever, offended. None of us, right? Emotions are strong response to our instincts. And we want our emotions to be secure, calm, and serene. Emotional security is the measure of our own emotional state. In step 4, we're talking about emotional security being affected. So the best way I can describe it is it's like, about 3 miles from where I live, there's these high tension wires. They can't build anything above it. And those high tension wires just kind of hang there on their poles, and they just kind of go back and forth. But if one of them breaks and hits the ground, all of a sudden it goes pop, 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 and start jumping everywhere. So they go from point A to point whatever Z real quick, from calm to serene to blah. That's us. That's us, our emotional security being affected. The most, when emotional security is misdirected, is common, I would say common symptoms are like self-pity and anxiety. And that self-pity is when I run out people to resent, is it's a reoccurring presence of displeasure and resentment, that towards who? Me. Nothing screws up emotional security than resenting myself. But anxiety is that feeling of, remember, this is a natural fear. We're supposed to, help us. And then if we're using it backwards, we're going to have anxiety, the feeling of worry and uneasiness. So we become emotionally insecure, nervous. We get angry and defensive. The end result is a dangerous place, depression. And it's that low mood that causes a person to feel helpless, hopeless, and worthless, overwhelmed with the littlest things, where we just stare at it and think it's gonna never get better. And that affects normal day-to-day activities. It gets this name from the lowering of self-worth. We think our value is no longer there. Remember when we did step 1, I said, you guys never lost your value. That's the beauty. What did fear do to your emotional security? From a harm standpoint, how many people have you robbed of their emotional security? How many people worried about you every night you were running around? How about material security? That's the thing we need. The big book calls it pocketbook. The things we need for survival: money, property, employment, cars, whatever. The big TV that's out now with the 16K, whatever it is. But it propels us to get a job, to make money, to have things that feel secure. And we need food, we need shelter, we need clothing, we need transportation. Each one of us have different needs to, of material security, different needs. But what happens if it gets misdirected? We believe we need more. And I'm going to run over you to get it. And we fear we don't have enough. And we pursue beyond what we have. I heard a guy say the other day, and it's from the Tao Te Ching. Souution said it. When your cup is filled to the top, stop pouring. Be happy what you have. Don't let it overflow. Right? So we pour beyond what we have. We drive people beyond their needs as well. We pour their cup. We fill their cup up for them and don't stop pouring. It's meaning we take down others with us. We become dishonest. We resent and harm others, and because they got something I want. The end result is we're not satisfied with anything we have. Restless discontent. The last one is sex. It's a sex instinct, reproduction and/or pleasure. I mean, how do we reproduce? Right? We know that. It feels good and satisfies us. It creates problems to get when we want more of it, meaning we can hurt other people. The sex relations is relations with others with sex, but it's also a thought and it's an action. We'll discuss that when we get what that exactly means when we get to the sex conduct part. But we all have sex relations. We all have a sex drive. So, like talk about the animals earlier and their instincts. Animals don't have sex relations. They just get it on. They just reproduce. There's no choice in their partner. They don't care. They just do it. We have free will, intelligence to make decisions based on sex, choosing our partners, choosing our, fulfill our weird desires or whatever it is. It's our, but in a positive way, it's our ability, it's our ability to express ourselves, but it's also, our ability to choose a choice causes a lot of sex problems. So when the sex is misdirected, what happens? We're always pursuing it. We're always thinking about it, leading to anger when we don't get it, jealousy when someone's trying to get what we want, and revenge happens. But we hurt others to get what we want. We can get involved with the wrong people, stuck with the wrong people. We have it at the wrong time and for the wrong reasons. We make choices that hurt others, where we look back and go, what was I doing? One minute you're happily married or in a relationship, and you make this crazy mistake, and all I'm not gonna say mistake, choice, and you burn down the whole forest. Meaning we become dishonest. We hide sex relations. We create falsehoods, false standards, and we don't get what we want. We get I'm going to get resentful. I'm going to retaliate. The end result is we're very discontent with our sex life. The last one here is ambitions. And this is a deep one. I love talking about ambitions because it's kind of foreign territory, but ambitions is our goals for success or achievement, our future goals. And it's a good way to put it is we have ideals, like what we want in our heart. I use my ambitions or my goals to reach those ideals. But the thing about it is any instinct when misdirected can change a course of events, can change. Let's say I have an ideal to, be a millionaire. And something happens where it doesn't happen anymore. And my ideal's gone, my goals are gone, my whole life's changed. Let's just say Kicken offers to go into business with me and she wants me to go to Sweden. And so I sell my house, reroute myself out there. I got a future ahead of me. I see the road, and all of a sudden you call me the day before and say, it's not happening anymore. My ambitions have changed. Now put resentment in the way of that. How many times it has a resentment towards a friend who we had plans with, all of a sudden goes, takes a different road, or a person resents us or we harm them. So any instinct when misdirected can change the course of events affecting our future plans. Have resentments and harms ever changed your course of your life? Has fear ever steered you away from your ideals? Pride changed the course of events. Have you ever quit a job because, you think you need to make more money, even though it's a good job? Has high self-esteem ever destroyed a long-term relationship or even make you hold on to it? But the end result is our plans, our goals, our dreams, our ideals get changed because our social security and sex instincts are misdirected. If you look at the bottom here, and we'll see next week when we look at resentments, how fear is bracketed next to Mr. Brown. So fear is a basic survival mechanism. It motivates these instincts. So I'm going to put a WhatsApp group together pretty soon for people who come to this group. I'm going to put all these sheets and stuff in there so you can get a hold of them yourself. And if you want them, just, we'll work on that too. If you don't want to join that, we'll figure it out. I'm going to open this back up. So a few weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, we went to page 52 to those bedevilments, and we went over them as failures. Failure, right? Failures. All the failures that were with those bedevilments, right? We're going to look at them again. So go to page 52, and we're going to try to just do a little kindergarten aspect of instincts for each one, see which ones we can find. So it's in the middle of that page where it says we were having trouble with personal relations. Well, so we're having trouble with personal relations. That's easy. What instinct is that? Personal relations. I'm actually going to open this up again, the screen again, so that you can kind of keep looking at this, because I don't know, it'll be easier that way. You can keep looking at the instincts on there. So how about we kind of control our emotional natures? What's that? Emotional security, right? So we're starting to see these instincts. Resentment or fear affects and warps our emotional security. If I'm unaware of my emotions, they will always control me. So I'm trying to get aware of this. And if I'm going through the fifth step with a person who's done it before, who's overcome this stuff, what thing's going to happen to throw God into that? I mean, wow. We're prey to misery and depression. Misery is, that deep feeling of distress, discomfort. We went over depression a minute ago, what that was, that helplessness, hopeless, worthless, overwhelmed. Both are built on low self-esteem, right? Again, for low self-esteem, there's no pill you can take better than sponsoring. I'm going to say it right now. We couldn't make a living. Now, they're not talking about a job here, but it's not about, about making a living. It's about material security. How about pride? How about ambitions? We had a feeling of uselessness. Who was I useful to? Low self-esteem was I wasn't useful to anyone. If I feel useless, I got low self-esteem. How about we're full of fear? Well, this is a given because fear motivates these things. It's all of them. We're unhappy, any instinct, not enough money, pride, no one trusts me, personal relations, I hate people, high self-esteem, low self-esteem, no one wants to be around me, sex relations, my life's going nowhere, no one loves me. How about we couldn't seem to be of real help to other people? Wow. Real help to other people. What is real help to other people? First off, real help to other people is giving freely of yourself without comprehension of anything in return. So who have we been real help to if I'm run by instincts? I can't. I might help my neighbor with his, pulling the weeds out of his yard, but then I'm going to stay there long enough because I'm hoping he's going to give me some money for it or something. Or I'm going to, if I live on my spiritual side, I'm going to say, you need anything else? And I go on my way. I don't think about it. By living on self-will makes us selfish. That's just the way it is. So look at these. I like to call them the 7 pieces of self on here. Oops. We have pride, self-esteem, personal relations. That's 3 of them. Material, emotional, sex, and ambitions. So these 7 pieces of self I just went over make up our ego. And our ego is the I, our identity, who we think we are, me, myself, and I. But it's a false identity, meaning it's not who we really are. An ego makes me believe I am what I want. I am what I have. I am what I do. I am what others think of me. I am separate from others. I am separate from God. Meaning ego thrives on separation. It wants to keep us locked away in its own little world. And sadly, many people, will forgo the spiritual approach because they're stuck in ego. So spiritual awakening dissolves the ego. The process of this, so we want to create a life that feels good on the inside, not one that just looks good on the outside. That's spiritual. So if you live on instincts, ego will be who you are. So in step 4, we become aware of our instincts, our resentments, our fears, our harm, sex, conduct. We see the truth in all of them. And the ego fades away, just like the wake at the end of the boat. So our instincts are deep down within us, and they direct our human wants and needs. Well, guess what? There's something else within us, our spirit, that guides and directs our spiritual wants and needs. Here's the condition. You can't have both. You can't have 2 cores. You can't be driven by misdirected instincts and be God reliant at the same time. You cannot, be a host to God. So let me say this, you can be a host to God, or you can be a hostage of your instincts. That's the difference. I'm going to read something I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to read something Bill W. wrote in 1954. This is from a letter he wrote. The idea keeps persisting that instincts are permanently bad and are the roadblocks which all spirituality falters. I believe the difference between good and bad and evil is not the difference between spiritual and instinctual man. It is the difference between proper and improper use of the instincts. Recognition and right channeling. See, that recognition and right channeling of our instincts are the essence of achieving wholeness. So right channeling, what's going to make me see something correctly and clearly? The spirit. And the instincts become God-given again, not just me wanting more of it out here. So one thing I want to mention is, like emotional sobriety, so to speak. What is emotional sobriety? It's understanding our emotions. It's studying these instincts that we're kind of looking at tonight. But another thing you hear in recovery is people say, I got the isms. Like and I always have the isms, like there's a bottle of booze in the parking lot doing push-ups or something, but I got the isms. When they say, most people say that, they refer to wanting to drink or always have it. One of my spiritual advisors said it best. The ism stands for insufficient spiritual maturity, insufficient spiritual maturity. So basically it's like this. If I start off using or drinking at, let's say 13, and I get sober at 36, I have the emotional maturity of a 13-year-old. Drinking and using, slow down any emotional security because we were self-medicated. I didn't have to work on anything. My brother never touched a drop in high school, did drugs, still hasn't. I tried to, but but he never touched a drop. And we're sitting there talking one night and he goes, high school sucked. I hated everything about it. And I'm like, I loved high school, but then at the same time, I was self-medicated. I didn't feel those hormonal things he felt, or whatever you want to call it, changes. I never went through that. I just medicated, So with the emotional maturity comes spiritual maturity. And that's simply, my start learning right from wrong when I should do something, how I shouldn't do it. It's listening to my inner voice. So we never had spiritual maturity because we insisted on relying on our instincts rather than God. And one must achieve this awareness of God or with God because it is God consciousness, and only God consciousness capable of exceeding these animal instincts. We must look within and find what the big book calls the great reality. Is then we can have sufficient spiritual maturity. But we got to get that stuff all the way. One of my friends named, this guy Fred says it really well. He says it's like we have this beautiful temple inside of us, and it's the most beautiful cathedral in the world. But we store the worst things about us inside, our resentments, our hatred, our fears, all that manure, that bag of manure we store in there, So does our pain end when we stop drinking? It does not end. It doesn't end when we raise our hand at a meeting. And many people believe they'll always be this injured, lost alcoholic with this, troubled past. And the biggest stigma is the 12 steps. It's for alcohol and drugs. The truth is, it's a set of spiritual principles to manifest change so we can discover who we really are, the truth who we really are. We're not these instincts. We're not this ego. It's not a journey to get better. It's a journey of getting better and growing. There has to come a point where we must set aside everything we think we know. It's like the set aside prayer said. And we must learn something new, so something new can happen. Let go of something old, something new. I mean, I hold on to this can represents my old life, right? And this is kind of 6 and 7 stuff, but this represents the new life that's been given to me. I can't, I want to pick it up, but I can't. I got to put down the old life to take the new life. And that's what happens in 6 and 7. And 6 and 7, I got to become aware of this stuff to let go. 49 is about the alignment of our personality and our character with our spirit. It's no longer about ways of aligning our personality and character with our instincts. So it changes the direction of our life. Step 4 through 9. And when our directions of our life changes, guess what happens? We change. Personality change sufficient to bring about recovery. That change, comes through personal inventory. We finally wake up from the matrix or the wake we lived in, the past. When they say, to let go of everything we meant as objectable or shortcoming, I'm talking about letting go of your past, and what happens is we no longer are obsessive over our illnesses, or whatever we have, it's been restored. We cease striving for success because we already have success. We're not fighting anyone anymore. I love that. And we stay conscious on a daily basis and we look for the good in everything because we know that whenever we are in harmony with our source, we have the power of that source. And we know the only thing to obtain, every day is one thing: growth every day. But why do I need this growth? Why do I need to be a better person? Why do I need this stuff? To help other people. And you'd be surprised if you're a good person and you're living the spiritual side, you're going to help people and not even know about it, just by your smile, just by your being there, showing up. It's amazing. For all transformation not possible, becoming aware of our instincts. That is spiritual maturity. That's spiritual maturity right there. Having all that stuff. So page 64 says we ask ourselves why we're angry. Misuse of instincts. We're gonna get more into that next week. I'm going to show you guys the cover that comes with tonight real quick. I'm going to run over that real quick. So this is like the cover page. See, I used to do this group live, so I had all these booklets I would give out. So look at this one. Made a searching for us more inventory ourselves: social, security, sex, self, instincts. How do we get past it? Personal inventory. Doesn't seem that difficult. Resentment, harm, fears, sex conduct. Pretty cool. This is a cool freaking program. I mean, we don't know what we got until we got it. Think about that. I mean, we do the steps, but do we know what we got? No, we don't know what we got till we got it. And we go, whoa, I got to give this away. So we start with the meditation in this group, and we kind of end with the meditation. And if you want to hang out afterwards, we'll hang out and answer questions and stuff and talk. Coffee time, whatever you want to call it. So again, if you want to, close your eyes and just relax for a second. And this is just to think about some stuff. Start with that breath again and just, so being driven by misdirected instincts is one of the deadliest ways. We're totally unaware that how deeply they drive our lives. And we have unconscious devotion to those instincts. I mean, no clue that they're controlling us. No clue they're controlling our thoughts, our wants, our needs, our decision. No clue that we turn into this ego thing. So what happens is we believe the lies in place of logical. We hold resentments rather than healing ourselves. We harm others rather than help others. We prove we are right rather than make right with others. And we hope for that we will be happy instead of discovering how to become happy. And we follow our instincts rather than intuition. Perhaps the greatest truth is what I'm aware of, I can control, but what I'm not aware of will control me. I mentioned that earlier. The alternative of being aware of misdirected instincts is that we will always unknowingly control you, leaving you in pain. We can unmask that pain and see what's behind it. Always, because we have these steps. So we will never know true happiness, true joy, until we do this process. But being aware of misdirected instincts means I see what causes pain. It's then we can work on that pain and let it go forever. Watch it fade away in the water like the wake. So 2 important facts I mentioned tonight. We can't have 2 chords. It's either God or instincts. The second fact is self-will can overcome self-will. instincts can overcome, misdirected instincts will not overcome misdirected instincts. The same mind that creates the problem cannot overcome the problem. Yeah. I mean, you can live on misdirected instincts, or you can try to defeat it by using misdirected instincts. They're not going to take you anywhere. So you have a choice. You can either continue to be driven by this stuff or driven by God. It's a simple choice. What's your choice? If you're thinking, how can God help? Is that thinking you? Or is it your instincts? If you're thinking, what is this guy Steve now? Is that you, or is that your instincts telling you that? But it's the real choice is God or instincts. What's the choice? Or how free do you want to be? Do you want to be right, or do you want to be free? In the end, nothing humbles us more than misdirected instincts. This is one of the 4-step prayers that I have. God, I know it's I who made my life a mess. Walk beside me on my journey of personal inventory. Help me seek out my flaws. Give me strength to see and understand so I can become aware how instincts have driven my thinking and my actions. Help me be honest and fearless on this endeavor of written inventory. For I know when I see the truth, I will change.